Welcome back to using the law of cosines to find an angle measure in an oblique or non-right triangle. So in example 5, we are given 2 or 3 side lengths for a triangle and we're asked to find one of the angles. And because of this particular situation, the only way that we can solve this is to use the law of cosines. So let's get started. What we need to remember is what the law of cosines looks like. So remember that example looks like a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc times the cosine of angle A. And remember that the cosine of angle A, or angle A itself, is directly opposite the triangle from side A. Okay, now if you watched my last video where we did an example with finding the side length, so again, an example like this where we were given 3 sides and we needed to find an angle measure, we did rewrite this equation slightly. So I wanted you to see what that looked like. And what that said is that the cosine of angle A is equal to a squared minus b squared minus c squared divided by negative 2 times b times c. And then remember we said that in order to find the angle measure, we need to use an inverse cosine in order to do that. So I'm not going to write that part down until we get to it in our steps. So your sensibilities are whatever they are. Some of you will jump right to this equation. Some of you will want to start with the original equation. I will start here, and then I will show you how we can get there. So I'll do it both ways, actually. So here's where I'm going to start. I want x. Directly across from x is 16, so this is my a. So I get 16 squared equals 5 squared plus 13 squared minus 2 times 5 times 13 times the cosine of angle A, which is x. Now I'll do a little bit of simplifying along the way, but not a whole lot. So I will find 16 squared. Now, the reason I'm going to simplify, because I know that's what a lot of students want to do. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of simplifying along the way, but I do know that helps a lot of us. Until we understand fully what we're doing, this helps a lot of us. Now, instead of simplifying 5 squared and 13 squared, which I know are 25 and 169, I am going to show you again, like if I don't want to rely on my memory, I can simply type these in together, right? And this just saves a little bit of time, and there's no reason to struggle. We have a tool. It's important that you know how to add. It's important you know how to multiply. It's important that you know squares and cubes to a certain extent. But we have a calculator to help us with the hard part, so go ahead and use it. Next thing I'm going to do is simplify the negative 2 times 5 times 13, which I know is negative 130, but because I freak out sometimes under pressure, right? Let's just check it. So yeah, it's our negative 130. That's a really long negative. And then times the cosine of x. Now, careful. This is not 195 minus 130. I cannot simplify that way, so please don't be tempted to do that. Now I have 256 minus 194 is equal to negative 130 times the cosine of x. So I want to simplify that. Again, what do students do? They like to simplify all the way. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So I have that 62 is equal to negative 130 times the cosine of x. So I need to divide both sides by negative 130. So 62 divided by negative 130 is equal to the cosine of x. So now in order to solve for x, I have to use an inverse cosine. So x equals the inverse cosine of this fraction 62 divided by negative 130, right? So that's what I want to put in my calculator. So second cosine 62 divided by negative 130. And it is important that you remember that negative in there because otherwise you're going to get the wrong answer, right? Enter. Okay, the 8 in the hundredths place rounds the 4 in the tenths place up to a 5. So this is approximately 118.5 degrees. Now I promise you I was also going to show you how do I go directly to that a new equation, and this is where I don't like to simplify step by step, so this is where it helps me. So here's what I know. I know that the cosine of angle A is equal to, right, that's 16 squared, that's the side opposite angle A. So here I really should put the cosine of x, right, because angle A is what we're using, x. Okay. So 16 squared minus 15 squared minus 13 squared over negative 2 times 15 times 13. Okay, now again, I would type all of this into my calculator at one time. Many students would not. That's okay. It's completely, again, up to you. But this is x equals the inverse cosine of that whole mess. So if I just do the numerator, 16 squared minus 15 squared minus 13 squared, which I already knew, it's 62, right? Sorry, it is not 62. 16 squared minus 15. Oh, it's not 15 squared, it's 5 squared. I hope that you were all pausing and asking that question of yourselves right now. Where did she get 15? She doesn't know where she got it. So that's okay. We all make mistakes. So I'm just going to copy that equation and go back. I don't want to retype the whole thing. So I copied it. I'm going to go back and delete that one. Right? How's that for handy calculator use there? Now we have our 62. That's in my numerator. And then, of course, I already know in my denominator is that negative 130. So here I got to this part a lot faster than all of these steps that I took before. I can get there even faster, and here's what I wanted to show you. Now, this is really tricky for some students, right? Really tricky because we need to be careful about the use of our grouping symbols. So I'm going to put it, actually, before I do that, let's do it this way. I'm going to put in my grouping symbols, and I'm going to take the numerator, so my 16 squared minus 5 squared minus 13 squared, and I'm going to keep this grouped together. Now I'm going to divide, and again, I'm going to put parentheses around this. Negative 2 times 5 times 13. Now, I'm going to take this and I'm going to simplify it. It's this. I could put it back in a fraction. That's completely up to you if you want to go back and put it in a fraction. So this simplifies down to negative 31 over 65. I could rewrite that if I wanted to. I really don't. I know what I'm looking for. I need the inverse cosine of this. So I'm going to type in the inverse cosine. I'm not even going to retype this. I'm simply going to use the second and the negative to copy that answer from my calculator right into the next equation. And then I simplify and note that I'm still getting that x is approximately 118.5 degrees. Now, I know I went through that fast, and I know that sometimes learning new tricks on our calculator can be a little confusing. I would recommend maybe going back and rewatching that part again and just looking for those little clues. You don't even need to listen to me necessarily, but look for those little clues. What are ways that we can use our calculator more efficiently? And after you've done that, I hope you'll go and watch the next video where I'm going to do example 6, where this time they didn't give us the image of a triangle, but they are still giving us 3 sides, so we're still going to use the law of cosines again.